Sophie clutched her tiny one-year-old daughter Emily close to her chest, the worn stuffed rabbit pressed tightly in Emily's arms. The fluorescent lights of the supermarket aisle flickered faintly overhead, reflecting off the neatly stacked milk cartons, but Sophie barely noticed. Her mind raced. How would she afford the milk her daughter desperately needed? Coins jingled faintly in her small, frayed wallet, not nearly enough to cover even a single carton. Anxiety knotted her stomach, and she felt a heavy weight of helplessness pressing down on her. Emily's wide blue eyes looked up at her with innocent hope, tiny fingers curling around her mother's coat. Sophie's heart ached at the thought of letting her daughter go hungry. She scanned the shelves again, hesitating, wishing for a miracle. Then, out of the corner of her eye, she noticed Daniel, a young supermarket worker, quietly observing her from a few steps away. His expression was soft, kind, and patient, an unspoken understanding passing between them. Sophie's chest tightened, and in that moment, she realized that sometimes, human kindness comes from the most unexpected places. A simple act could change everything. Little did she know, today, her daughter's small hope would be met with a heartwarming miracle. The supermarket aisle was busy with shoppers moving quickly, their carts clattering on the polished floor, yet Sophie felt as if the world had shrunk to just her and Emily. She knelt beside her one-year-old daughter, adjusting the faded pale pink oversized coat that hung loosely on Emily's tiny frame. The soft curls of the baby's blonde hair glimmered under the harsh fluorescent lights, framing her round, rosy face and wide blue eyes filled with innocent hope. Emily clutched her frayed stuffed rabbit tightly, pressing it against her small chest, as if it could shield her from the worries that Sophie carried silently. Sophie's hands trembled slightly as she reached for a milk carton on the lowest shelf. Her worn fingers traced the edges, hesitating. The coins in her tiny brown wallet jingled faintly, but she knew they weren't enough. Anxiety coiled in her stomach, and her heart tightened at the thought of leaving the aisle empty-handed. She glanced down at Emily, whose gaze met hers with trust so pure it made Sophie's throat ache. Every mother's instinct screamed at her to find a way, no matter how impossible it seemed. Shoppers passed by, oblivious to the quiet struggle unfolding between the mother and child. Sophie's eyes darted between the milk cartons and her wallet, hope and fear intertwining. The fluorescent light reflected softly on the shelves, catching Daniel, a young store worker, quietly observing from a distance. His expression was calm, gentle, and attentive, as if he understood the silent story written on Sophie's face. In that small, ordinary aisle, amidst the hum of everyday life, Sophie's desperation met an unspoken kindness. She didn't yet know it, but this moment of quiet struggle would soon become a story of compassion, hope, and the transformative power of a simple, human gesture. Sophie's hands shook slightly as she clutched the small brown wallet, the few coins jingling softly inside. She knelt beside Emily, who rested her tiny head against her mother's shoulder, curls falling softly over her round rosy face. The baby's wide blue eyes followed Sophie's every movement, full of trust and innocent hope. Sophie's heart ached at the thought of letting her daughter go hungry, but the coins in her wallet weren't nearly enough to buy the milk they needed. Emily pressed her frayed stuffed rabbit tightly against her chest, tiny fingers clutching the soft fabric as if it could shield them from the harsh reality. Sophie scanned the shelf again, eyes darting between the milk cartons and her own wallet, her mind racing for a solution. Each carton seemed just out of reach, both financially and emotionally. A pang of helplessness tightened her chest, but she refused to give up. From a few feet away, Daniel, the young store worker, crouched slightly near the shelf, quietly stacking cans. His gaze lingered on Sophie and Emily, soft and understanding. He noticed the way Sophie hesitated, the tension in her shoulders, the subtle tremble in her hands. Though he said nothing, his eyes reflected empathy and concern, a silent acknowledgement of her struggle. Shoppers passed by, unaware of the tender, intimate scene unfolding in the aisle. The fluorescent lights reflected softly on Emily's golden curls, her tiny coat, and Sophie's anxious expression, highlighting the fragile beauty of the moment. In that ordinary supermarket aisle, time seemed to slow. A mother's love, a child's trust, and a stranger's quiet observation converged, forming a moment that carried the potential to change everything. In the midst of everyday life, Sophie's quiet courage and Daniel's silent compassion were about to intersect, setting the stage for a simple act of kindness. Sophie's fingers trembled slightly as she clutched the small brown wallet, the coins inside jingling faintly. She had reached the limits of her courage, knowing that the money she had could barely buy one carton of milk, let alone enough for her tiny daughter. Emily, nestled safely in her mother's arms, pressed her frayed stuffed rabbit to her chest, wide blue eyes glimmering with trust and innocent hope. Sophie's heart ached, every mother's instinct screamed at her to provide, no matter the cost. Daniel, the young store worker, had been quietly observing from a few steps away, his short brown hair slightly tousled, clean-shaven face soft with concern, and eyes full of empathy. He noticed the way Sophie hesitated, the subtle tremble in her hands, and the anxious yet loving way she held Emily close. There was a quiet dignity in her struggle, a courage that went unnoticed by the bustling shoppers passing by. Finally, with a deep breath, Sophie extended her worn brown wallet toward Daniel, a few coins glinting inside. Her hands were nervous but steady, and her eyes met his with a silent plea. Daniel's expression softened further. He knelt slightly, gently accepting the wallet, his voice calm and kind as he reassured her. There was no judgment, only understanding, a quiet affirmation that human kindness still existed in small, powerful gestures. Emily watched the exchange with innocent curiosity, clutching her rabbit tighter, her wide blue eyes reflecting the hope that her mother so desperately clung to. In that ordinary supermarket aisle, amidst fluorescent lights and blurred shoppers, an extraordinary act of compassion was quietly unfolding. Sophie's despair met Daniel's empathy, a small act that would ripple far beyond the confines of the store, igniting hope, gratitude, and the enduring power of kindness. Sophie's hands shook slightly as she extended her worn brown wallet toward Daniel. Inside, a few coins jingled softly, all she had to offer. Her chest tightened with hesitation and vulnerability, but her daughter Emily's wide, innocent blue eyes and trusting gaze gave her courage. Emily, small and fragile in Sophie's arms, clutched her frayed stuffed rabbit tightly, pressing it to her rosy cheeks as if it could share her mother's anxiety. Sophie's gray coat hung loosely around her, and her tired face reflected worry, hope, and the raw honesty of a mother desperate to care for her child. Daniel, 19, with short brown hair, clean-shaven face, and warm expressive eyes, knelt slightly to meet Sophie's gesture. He accepted the small wallet with gentle hands, his soft smile reassuring her that her effort, however modest, was seen and valued. There was no judgment in his eyes, only empathy and quiet compassion. The coins inside were a symbol of Sophie's struggle, but Daniel's understanding made the moment feel weightless, filled with human connection. Then, with careful attentiveness, Daniel placed a paper bag containing 2 milk cartons into Sophie's hands. Relief washed over her as she grasped the bag, the weight of the milk comforting, a tangible answer to her worries. Emily's tiny fingers reached out, touching the smooth surface of the cartons, her wide blue eyes sparkling with innocent excitement. Fluorescent lights of the supermarket reflected softly on hair, clothing, and objects, while shoppers passed by, unaware of the tender scene. In that ordinary aisle, a simple act, a mother offering coins, a young man giving milk, had transformed anxiety into hope. Sophie's gratitude and Daniel's kindness created a moment of quiet magic, proving that even the smallest gestures could carry the deepest human warmth. Sophie walked gently toward the supermarket exit, the brown paper bag with 2 milk cartons held carefully in her hands. Relief and quiet gratitude softened her tired features, the weight of worry finally lifting from her shoulders. Emily, small and fragile in her arms, clutched her frayed stuffed rabbit tightly, blonde curls falling softly over her round rosy face. Her wide blue eyes sparkled with innocent hope, reflecting the light streaming through the open doors. The faded pale pink oversized coat, white knitted jumper, floral leggings, and tiny worn shoes gave her an almost fragile, angelic presence as she nestled against her mother. A few steps inside the aisle, Daniel, 19, short brown hair, clean-shaven, wearing a neat blue store uniform, watched them with a soft, compassionate smile. His eyes reflected quiet satisfaction, a gentle pride in the small difference he had made. Hands relaxed at his sides, he radiated warmth and kindness, knowing that sometimes the simplest acts, an exchange of coins, a paper bag of milk, could carry the deepest human impact. Fluorescent store lights merged with natural sunlight pouring through the doors, casting a soft, golden glow over the mother and child. Shelves of milk cartons receded into soft focus behind them, and passing shoppers blurred into the background, emphasizing the intimate, tender moment. Sophie's heart swelled with gratitude as she glanced down at Emily, whose tiny hands explored the milk cartons with wide-eyed wonder. In that ordinary supermarket aisle, a quiet miracle had unfolded. Sophie's despair had been met with Daniel's empathy, Emily's need had been answered with human kindness. As they moved toward the exit, the air seemed warmer, brighter, filled with hope, gratitude, and the enduring power of compassion, a small gesture that would echo far beyond that aisle.